Hello everyone, this is update for August 13, 2024, day 902 of the war, end of the date update. So first of all, apologize for a late video, I missed one day. So there's going to be catch up for effectively 4 days. And I'm just going to straight jump into walk through the situation, overview of the situation in Ukraine and around Ukraine. I'm going to skip macroeconomic overview, but I will do it in the next video. As a heads up, I'm planning to discuss a little bit in detail US fiscal situation, which we're all aware is not in good shape. And I just want to provide sort of more, I would say, illuminating details so it really gets to the point why things are not going in the right direction, let's put it this way. But let's start with Ukraine. So I'm going to do my overview in a clockwise fashion, as I always do, and we're going to just jump straight to this invasion of the Kursk region by Ukrainian forces. So first, it was finally admitted by Ukrainian president that that's the case. There was a presentation done by Ukrainian chief of Ukrainian general staff. What is becoming clear is this is one big huge gamble where the idea behind it is that Ukrainian forces will capture some Russian territories and that will be traded for Ukrainian territories captured by Russia. I would say it's extremely primitive thinking, and it's probably not gonna work. It's really, I would say, this last sort of the most desperate sign of desperation, of desperate attempt to change the course of the war in Ukraine's favor. The reason I'm saying that this is unlikely to work is for the following reasons. First of all, this territory that's captured is not big issue for Russia. Doesn't create any true meaningful impact on Russia because it's where I'm showing where this yellow arrow is. It's essentially kind of like not dead end, but remote area of Russia that's not terribly important. Sort of similar to like Bryansk region. That would be the same thing. I would say I'm exaggerating and primitivizing it, but if Russia lose this piece of this territories, they wouldn't even notice. That's how of little importance these territories are. Obviously, having said that, the importance is more political and the reputation damage that's being done. There is no question about that, and that's really a huge blow to reputation of Russia's president. At the same time, it appears what Russia is doing is probably the most effective and efficient strategy, given that it's becoming very clear Russia does not have reserves. It's stretched extremely thin. So everything that can fight is already on this main front line in Ukraine. And so there's no effectively any reserves. So going back when I said that Russia's decision strategy is seem to be effective and efficient is effectively Russia, what they did, they allow Ukrainian forces to occupy some of this Russian territories and sort of spread and lose its penetrating capabilities essentially, because there's not enough forces on Ukrainian side to continue successful drive. And we can see that this invasion kind of stalled. There is a little bit of expansion, but it's sort of last hurrah in terms of expansion. And Russian forces starting to counterattack. So Russian military top brought minimum necessary forces to simply contain Ukrainian forces from just advancing without control, and impeding advance towards east. So that's enough to sort of contain Ukrainian forces. It's not enough to even, I would say, perfectly contain. So there's still going to be some kind of moves, some kind of advances. But from big picture perspective, the big advance is looks like it's over unless Ukrainian command is going to double down and put in more reserves into this newly captured territories, which is, we'll see if that happens. Somehow it feels unlikely. So as I stated, Russia just pulled a couple of units from the main front line, and specifically 15th Brigade of former DNR, and at this point it's unclear, it might be 15th Division, and also 810th Naval Infantry Brigade from, it used to be along on the Dnipro front line. There might be a couple more units coming, but that's enough to contain, as I stated, Ukrainian forces and not allow them to advance further. And this allows Russian command to have time and continue pushing in this area west of Donetsk, because the situation there is becoming more and more negative for Ukraine with every passing day. And it's, in some ways, its best analogy is like two fighters. They stuck knives in each other's sort of bodies, and waiting who's going to bleed out first. And Russia's command understands that most likely Ukraine is going to bleed out first, and so that's why they have this sort of knife in Kursk region, and then sort of there is some bleeding, but they okay with it, versus this knife that's west of Donetsk, that's on Ukrainian territory, and it's getting deeper into core Ukrainian territory that is not contained. And Russian command did not pull any resources from this area. So the advance, the attack continues, sort of unstoppable. There's reduction on other section of the front line, but this area west of Donetsk and I guess west of Avdiivka is sort of sacred, sacred cow, I guess, for Russian command, and so they're not gonna pull anything from there. And the whole point to continue attacking there, continue advancing, putting Ukrainian forces in extremely difficult situation, which they already are. So this is kind of like, in a nutshell, kind of big strategic game that's being played here. And despite very, let's say, encouraging first results and in positive mood in Ukrainian forces, it will become clear with passage of time that it's kind of like hitting into nowhere. That doesn't lead to anything. On a side note, I actually want to mention that Russia's defensive positions were very well built, actually. And I want to contrast this with what was going on Ukrainian side when Russia's forces invaded northeast of Kharkiv, where essentially all of those defensive positions were completely not done, or not done in the right places, but mostly not done at all, and it was disastrous. So on Russian side, it actually done pretty well, and Ukrainian forces did really excellent job of successfully assaulting those defensive positions. I think the main contributing factors to success was that they were, on the Russia side, they were manned by conscripts, which have extremely low staying power, I guess low morale, and zero desire to fight. So that's really what opened, that was the key to opening the gates. Because if those defensive positions were manned by sort of more regular Russian units, Ukrainian forces would have zero chance of advancing forward. But it was right, basically, it was the right, from that perspective of ability to cross into Russia, it was the right location for attack, except this location strategically completely meaningless. So this is a little bit more updated map. So what Ukrainian forces managed to do, I mentioned that they spread a little bit towards southeast, getting into this village Giri, where Ukrainian forces were counterattacked by 810th Naval Infantry Brigade, and that counterattack was actually pretty successful for Russian forces. Ukrainian forces lost a bunch of equipment there. Otherwise, situation more or less the same. I just want to provide updates. Sudzha is firmly in Ukrainian hands, and has been since essentially day one of this invasion. So again, going back, the question is does Ukrainian command have more resources to throw into this area? Then things may get sort of more interesting for Ukrainian side. If there's no more reinforcements here, things probably gonna stay more or less the same. Maybe some minor advances here and there by Ukrainian forces, but we won't see those huge and swift moves that we've seen in first couple of days. And I think Russian counterattacks will become more and more painful over time. Now let's. This is just basically prior map. Now let's just quickly check situation northeast of Kharkiv, and things here are stable essentially. That's a key message here. There's not much going on here. Now let's move to the situation on the north Lugansk front line. Things here are also more or less stable. Russian pressure in the north towards Kupiansk. They made some advances in the area of Peshane, but they're just not big enough to show on the map. But overall, Russian forces slowly but surely moving here up in the north. In the south, situation a little bit more stable. Russia's advances are contained there. Now let's look at the situation on the North Donbas section of the front line, starting from the actually northern part of it. Things here are more or less contained from Russian in terms of Russia's advances. In the northern part, there's nothing major was happening here. In the southern part, actually, the situation is very similar. Russian troops clearly bogged down, and basically it goes to what I mentioned before. The cost of capturing new territories is just simply astronomical, and, call it this way, unaffordable for Russian command for now, and especially given that they may need to pull some resources from here to send to Kursk. So the situation here is, I wouldn't say it's stable, but it's on pause. That's probably the best way to say it. Now let's look at the situation on the central Donbas front line. This is where I mentioned things are getting, say, from bad to worse, probably the best way to describe it for Ukraine. So just quick updates. Russian troops captured this village Svyrydonivka and actually started crossed and started attacking village Yelizaveta. So this is, they're spreading up north, and then They already Russian troops are already in Svyrydonivka. They don't control entire of this town, but there is fighting going on already inside of the town. So which really means it's just question of time that it's gonna get lost, uh, probably in fairly short order. And then Russian troops continuing advancing along the railroad line. Also, Ukrainian troops almost evacuated this small bridgehead on the um, eastern side of the stream. Basically, it's in the process of being of evacuation. It's actually shrunk. It's actually much smaller in size at this point. So it's absolutely clear Ukrainian forces are continue to be on retreat here without question. This is from the August 3rd, so you can see that advances are very visible and meaningful, and it's not that many days passed. It's actually 10 days passed. This is just big picture. I just updated catch-up update for all of these advances. So as you can see, the situation is becoming more and more threatening for Ukrainian forces. It's actually a perfect situation for counterattack, but it's not going to happen simply for the fact because Ukrainian forces are not capable. They're not trained. They don't have right organization to have successful counterattack. So what that leaves us is that Russian troops will continue slowly but surely moving westwards towards Pokrovsk here, and it's possible that the more actually, let's say, ruinous or more negative move for Russian side would be turn south towards Selidove, either east or west of it, and basically move down south. It really would collapse this whole Ukrainian front section of the front line and may lead to actually disorganized retreat, basically all the way to Dnipropetrovsk region, which would be somewhere around here. So things can get really negative for Ukraine. This is not imminent, but this is kind of long-term goal where the situation is heading in this area. Now let's look at the situation on the Zaporizhzhia front line. Things here are more or less stable. Some Russian probing pressure around the Vodinets, similar situation around Oruzhaina. It's clear that Russian forces, Russian command is not considering this as the main theater of operations by any means. And then let's finish with the situation along the Dnipro line, along the Dnipro River, and things here also, as I stated, quiet, and that's actually a neat update. This is where 810th Naval Infantry Brigade was pulled. There's some indication that also could be that the 10th Special Forces Brigade pulled from here. Basically, it's just sort of donor region, donor army group for the Kursk region, essentially. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.